Now, MPs from arid and semi-arid parts of Kenya want the government to declare the drought ravaging some parts of the country a national disaster. This as Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Willie Bate assured that the county had enough food. The legislators are also concerned about the slow pace of implementing long-term measures to deal with recurring season of drought, as the Met Department predicts more dry months ahead.
If it will not next one month, I can assure you in Tiati we will lose all the livestock, and especially cattle, and that is a major source of livelihood. So what follows next is that people will start dying.
Government should be able to rethink how to deal with this situation in this country, so that we don't have this situation arising every after 3 years, 2 years. These pastoral areas, these arid and semi-arid areas, government should be able to direct resources, build some of the dams in these areas, harvest water, irrigate these areas so that there is water for consumption by the people.
All right, allow me to introduce our panelists who are already here, of course, so that now we can actually also thrash these matters out, especially the looming droughts, which we know resources are bound to be also a very ticklish issue when it comes to security matters. We have with us Professor Noah Midamba, who is the Vice Chancellor of KCA University, also an expert on defense and foreign policy. Also, we have with us Dr. Apollos Machira. Machira is a criminologist from Egerton University. Also, we do have with us Dr. Mumo Nzau, who is a governance and security strategist. And we have Dr. Mustafa Ali, who is a conflict resolution and national security expert. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right. We can see also what is on the front page of the Citizen in Tanzania right now. If we may just check that particular headlining story of the EAC and what Museveni is saying, that drought is self-inflicted. Do you agree with Museveni that this drought is self-inflicted? Because we can see in Tanzania, they're saying that they have enough food. Here in the country, we've had also the cabinet secretary saying that we have enough food, but we understand 4 people have already died so far. So this really flies in the face of what is telling us that we have enough food, yet there are 4 people who are already dead because of drought in the country. Let's begin with Dr. Mumo Nzau.
Yeah, in any recipe for national security or regional security, environmental matters are very important, and we are talking about the concomitant issues to do with food security also. And so the two are interrelated, they are intricately related, and therefore I think the institutions we have in place ought to up their game each time to ensure that the problems associated with drought and ravages of weather and climate change are well taken care of in order that our people are secure. If they are not well fed, then we are also insecure in many ways. So I think those are good concerns. It is not to show that some countries are doing better than others and so on. The region is basically facing drought, and the mitigation factors or processes should be in place. Governments are not doing too badly off, but there is room for better performance in terms of securing the safety of our people in terms
but
of
it seems we always go in a vicious cycle. This is not the first time that we normally hear about drought. We know how it will be. We have a spell of, a dry season. We have also an influx of so much rain, but we don't seem to learn from it. In between, we're still grappling with this issue. So this is not the first time. Remember for Kenya's initiative. Why are we remaining none the wiser when it comes to drought? It's appalling to hear people dying in this country, and yet there is enough food in some pockets of the country, and some out of the countries there is so much drought.
Debarl, there should be no shortage of food in this country. That's number one.
Yes.
The distribution of food to the remotest corner of the country is something that must be done well. There should be no any reason why there is no food or water in Turkana or Mandera or Isiolo. About the weather, that's okay. Weather patterns do change, and we might have more rain this time. Next time we have less rain. But Kenya still depends on rain-fed agriculture, and that Kenya depends on rain-fed agriculture and not irrigation in a place where there is sufficient water to irrigate is something that is still baffling. And the shortage of food that we are experiencing at the moment in various parts of the country is something that must be wholly blamed on Kenyans, in particular those who are responsible for this kind of work, the Ministry of Agriculture and the other line ministries.
Ministry of Devolution and
So
Planning.
I agree with Museveni that this is, in terms of food shortage and famine, this is something that we have to blame ourselves. We cannot, there are many countries which do not receive a single drop of rain, you know, for 9 months, 10 months, and they're actually exporting food. Why is Saudi Arabia exporting rice?
All right. Okay. Let's hear from Professor Noah Midamba.
Debarl, all science that you can find and look for point to wars, ravaging war that will be fought here in Africa over water.
Over water.
Yes, and I had a very, very good in-depth analysis while I was in Israel from an old professor who's spent all his year studying climate change and the impact of climate change. What is happening is at this point, that Museveni Trump cannot have delusion that there is not going to be a real serious climate change impact on our life. What is so wrong and in terms of under-preparedness of ourselves, we are consuming water, we are wasting water all over the place.
Yes.
Israel is pumping water from Sea of Galilee all the way to Tel Aviv, covering the whole country. And they have one of the most sophisticated dissolution plant that there is that serve the country. Israel consume and conserve every drop of water so that it is constantly recycled and used by people very wisely. We need to wake up in Kenya. We need to understand we have plenty of water under the Turkana Desert. We have Lake Victoria, and we have rain in Kenya, on several parts of Kenya, which are being wasted and gone, and we are not prepared. We cannot pretend that all of a sudden there is a crisis. This has been coming all along.
It's been very cyclic.
Yes.
We don't seem to really come with any prime solution on how we can handle drought in this country, right? Dr. Apollos?
First, Debarl, let me give my deep condolences to Kipkolil, our neighbor in Mamanet, who has just been killed by an elephant 2 hours ago now. So Mamanet people are now worried and rioting because elephants are now coming to our homes. They have nowhere to stay. Their forests were destroyed. So they are now coming to our granaries, and when you try to prevent them, they kill people. They have just killed Kipkolil just now. Then Professor Madai told us, if you destroy nature, nature will destroy us completely. We have destroyed our forest, we have destroyed Mau, Mount Kenya, Aberdares, Mount Elgon. That is why we have no rains. And this may continue for a long time. So it is about time that the government tried to put steps to preserve nature. These elephants that have killed our neighbor have killed because the county government of Laikipia has misused 96 million Kenya shillings, fencing a kilometer instead of fencing a rugged place. 200 million has just been released by the government to go and fence, and I'm sure it will be misused just like they misuse all the time. Now, if you go to some of those pastoralist areas, animals are now grazing in farmers' places because they have nowhere to eat. So the Pokots and Saburus are bringing all the cows to some places in Laikipia. And I came from there yesterday. So we are fighting a very nasty situation because of this drought. Then the funny thing is that our government is a crisis-driven government. Now they have appointed 8 members of parliament to go to Isiolo, Marsabit, Laikipia, Saburu to investigate why there is drought. So I'm wondering, how do you go investigate drought in Isiolo, Marsabit, Laikipia, Saburu? We knew, and you know, sometimes it's the weather and nature. So I think we are not good enough in forward planning, and we must try to address these issues before they come. So the weathermen and the early warning systems.
Okay, but this is also, we have seen the government has gone full steam ahead to tell us that we have a large expanse of water aquifers in Turkana. But we've never been told since they announced, I think this is 2 years ago, what the plan has been to actually try and harness this water table that is lying, you know, in Turkana. So we have enough water to be supplied in this country, yet there is no actionable plan on how they're going to harness this. Or maybe this is the time they should come and tell us what is the phase that this particular project is at, so that people will know how we can actually make Kenya not a water resource country as it started to be by international community.
The people who are supposed to be planning are inside the box.
Yes.
And when you are inside the box, you cannot come out and think beyond that. All the evidence, all the research that are presented, which is available to anyone who care to look at, is there. The issue is what is happening with planning and execution of that plan. The projected table of water we have in Turkana is for 70 years. And then we have Lake Victoria, which need to be conserved very wisely. Like Apollo just said,
yes,
we're cutting trees. Now, where do we expect water to come from when we're chopping off the trees, interfering with the mouth forest, table of water is down? What do we expect to happen after this thing? We need to be talking about this on weekly, daily basis. We need to be teaching little kids in preschools and primary schools how to conserve and use water wisely now and for the future. Those are the kind of things that need to happen.
All right,
You know, we are talking about this here in Nairobi, and we are a bit comfortable. But we see last week, they stopped, we stopped washing our vehicles. Yeah. The next way forward, we shall stop washing our bodies. Because we are putting a lot of politics into some of these things. When we want to bring water to Nairobi, we want to, you know, some politicians, you know, it's a kind of a game.
Yes.
Praying with water, not taking long-term, you know, plans for our lives. So Nairobi, we are laughing now, but within another month, we shall have a rotation of washing, you know, baths. Every 3 days you take bath.
Yeah, let's hear from Dr. Mustafa.
But I do not think that we in Kenya are taking our environment seriously. I mean, just look at Nairobi. If you live along Kericho Kubwa River,
yes,
it's just a constant stench of sewage, effluent moving into that particular river.
Yes.
And the residents, they are suffering. NEMA does not care. NEMA has been approached. The Ministry of Environment does not care. And what we are seeing on Kericho Kubwa and some of the rivers within Nairobi is what is replicated all over the country. Even environmental issues have been politicized. The issue of the water towers in Maus, all these issues were politicized. And I don't understand why we have to politicize all issues in this country. If you ask me, the late Michuki,
yes,
that was the man when he was the Minister for Environment, there were changes. I mean, of course, he was there for a very short time, but surely there must be some kind of a strategic plan to address issues environmental in this country. But it's, as is true for many other sectors, nothing is being done to address strategic issues. And this issue of drought and famine is going to really disturb this country. It could even change election results. Who knows, in August?
Yeah, we have people who are weak, they cannot walk to polling stations. I mean, that also is bound to affect. If only we lose one vote, we lose, you know, one voice.
And as Mumo said, it's a question, it moves directly onto matters of national security. Food security is a very important issue that must not be underestimated.
Yeah. So should we declare it a national disaster?
It's a national security issue.
It's a national security issue.
Yes, correct.
All right. And also, there's some of a knee-jerk reaction we can see also inside the standard as well. This is a warning to people who are owning car washing dams here in the country. It says car wash businesses ordered to shut down. Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company yesterday ordered the closure of all car wash businesses in the city. In a statement, the company said it was forced to make the decision to conserve water. This is aimed at water conservation as vendors use treated water to wash vehicles, which is prejudicial during these difficult times, read the statement. And you can see also Nairobi governor there wearing a stern face. Be warned. And of course, this is also a very detailed news there. Crisis now deepens as acute water shortages. I think water shortage, it continues on the next page. And let me just show you what it says as acute water shortage hits region.
Yeah,
so
that's Laikipia.
that is
where I come from.
This is Laikipia?
Is it not?
2 rivers flowing into Lake Naivasha dry up as Nakuru County stops irrigation in Rongai. This is what is happening. Let's hear just from Peter Biar, Ajak, and I know also this is bound to affect South Sudan as well. We just also read a statement from Museveni, and this is headlining the front page of The Citizen. Let me just show you for your sake because we're not here. The Citizen, where is The Citizen now? There you go. It says EAC drought is self-inflicted. Do you think this drought is self-inflicted? We can see that there's a story also of Somalia. The UN also is warning, is sounding an alarm. Of course, the looming drought in Somalia also is a national security issue.
Well, I think there are many different factors that contribute to making the drought happen. Of course, there are larger global problems, as you know, related to climate change that is making water scarce and making things very difficult for everybody in the world. But at the same time, there are preventive and also there are actions that states and government take to basically reduce the larger global impact of climate change.
Yes.
And I think this is where I have to agree with my colleagues in the panel that it's not very difficult to see that not much is being done. In fact, it gets worse in South Sudan. Right now, I think the Nile is really being threatened. Since the end of the war in 2005, there's been a lot of this bottled water, a lot of things that have been dumped into the Nile. Over and over again, you see the Nile getting very shallow, where even in some parts, you can't move the barges that used to connect South Sudan and North Sudan. So over time, you see these problems are happening and no one is taking any actions. The same thing with our demand for fuel. People need firewood, they need something for it to provide energy. And you see a lot of trees being cut down and nothing being done to replace them. And then when you add it on top of that, the impact of conflict. You have in South Sudan, for example, now a wildlife being severely threatened, where you have all these rebel groups who are just in the jungle and shooting down animals so that they can provide food for their soldiers and so forth. So it has gone to the extent that some of our own national parks are now being threatened. There is a Badingolo Park in Jonglei that was recently closed because one of the former rebel groups has put troops there. And these troops were not being paid every month and their food was not coming on time. So they were basically just living off the land and shooting down wildlife. So it's a combination of many different factors. And I think all the scientists in the world are not mad when they warn that this consequence of climate change and environment is something that we have to pay attention to. So I think it's an existential threat, actually. It's an existential threat. The current generation may not fully understand it, but I think it's one of the major crises that we face in this region, these issues of environment and weak systems of state that are not delivering on the strategic objective as put by Dr. Mustafa.
All right, thank you. And of course, Peter Biar Ajak is the director of the International Growth Center in South Sudan, Juba. Let's hear from Dr. Mumo Nzau.
Yes, I think there are two levels here. This is partly a common problem affecting our region, our country. So it's a collective problem. And this what sometimes we call the collective action problem. When everyone has to do everything, no one does it because there's what you call free riders. And that's what probably President Museveni is talking about. You have people who think environment is another person's problem. Some government will take care of this and all that. And it becomes what we call the problem of what we call the collective action problem. So that is at the regional, international level because, of course, you know, many countries in these parts are not actually responsible for most of the problems that are affecting, for example, ozone layer and so on. It's a few countries, but they are to blame for 99% of the problem. So that is one. Now, on the flip side again, if you come into Kenya and so on, then we have strategic grain reserves. They should be well monitored. They should be well managed such that you can even have in fact, they should be able, ideally, to run a country for at least 5 years. Botswana can do it, actually, and it's almost, it's as good as semi-arid, you know, most of Botswana. So that is important. Now we have our county governments. They ought to, I mean, if you're in a place like Marsabit County, or what you call Isiolo, you know, Baringo County and so on. These are counties that are perennially having these problems. And it should be the foremost concern of the legislators there and the people and, you know, the people in the management of county affairs to have very elaborate programs about what to do about these. But at the same time, of course, national government should also have elaborate programs on the same. We have the Galana Kulalu project on maize and so on.
We need to question that particular project because
they did produce a lot, and they were doing. They've been distributing a lot of food in Kilifi and parts of the coast and so on. I may not have all the nitty-gritties, but I think if we can do more of that and in a good way, we can actually mitigate these problems. And we can, but you see, we cannot say that we cannot say put an end to weather changes and so on, but we should be able to fight back, ensure that it is done well each time.
Right, but it seems there's a poor planning that is very wanton in this country, because you can see from the other side of the pendulum, there's a lot of food, especially in the food basket areas of this country, and on the other spectrum, we are lacking completely. And as I mentioned, we don't seem to come with prime solutions in between. Yeah, because just two, was it 3 years ago? Where was it also in like Biar? I don't know. It was actually in Central Region. We saw milk glut. Yes, and you could see farmers wading through milk because we didn't have storage facilities.
Yeah, so we suffer from excesses sometimes.
We suffer from excesses.
Sometimes, I mean, you will see the narrative will change. The rains will come here in March. You know, and then people will complain, oh, it's flooding now. You know, the whole place is full of water. Crocodiles are coming home to the houses. I mean, I see that in Tanariva each time. So, you know, I just opened the door and there was this crocodile. Now there are no more crocodiles around the houses. You know? So it's elephants coming home across in Mamanet Forest, and that is a very important resource, Mamanet Forest and so on. And we have many others.
And of course, our condolences to that family and our deepest sympathy as well. And this is appalling that we are hearing now. This is the second victim who's being killed by an elephant this month. Yeah.
You know, you know, in Nyandarua, when you give a dog milk, it runs away. When you give cabbages to cows, cows run away. When other people are dying of hunger. So you wonder why we cannot transport some of that excesses to neighboring districts of Baringo, like
They don't run away because they have enough milk there.
they hate milk so much that they take off. And you can see cows running away from cabbages. So you can see the excesses and the dynamics.
Yeah, Debarl, I think the most deplorable thing is to continue this kind of crisis planning. What we're talking about, food rot. There are potatoes rotting in other parts of the country. The cabbages you see pile up on the roadside on other part of the country. The milk, like what Apollo is just saying. And while these folks are dying, with the children are going without milk. So what in the world did we create local government to do? You know, where's the planning?
Yes.
Where's the forward thinking? So we need we need as a country to have a new mindset.
Yeah. We need a new mindset altogether. Let's wrap it up, and you have a final comment
you know,
on this.
it's only now, after people are dying and animals are dying, the Ministry of Devolution has suddenly realized that the docket of drought and famine is with them. Now they are saying they are going to take food. But before they take food, some people will have died. Let me say this. The worst conflict we shall have in this continent is environmental conflict.
Yes.
Yes.
Because Sahara Desert and Kalahari Desert are coming towards the equator fast and furious. So when they all merge at the equator, the first country that will start war is Egypt, because of the Nile Treaty, because we shall start controlling the Blue Nile and the White Nile. Egyptians, with their 1927 Nile Treaty, they are prepared to start the war for Africa. That will be the worst conflict we are going to have in this continent, unless we take, early warning measures to address the issue of climate change.
Right, so I think
just in terms of statistics, just 1 second only. The world produces enough food for 12 billion people every year.
Yes.
But a lot of that food is wasted. In most African countries, 40% of the total harvest is wasted in post-harvest loss. If that's one of the areas that governments in Africa need to look at very, very closely, so that food is not wasted and is actually stored. And lastly, the issue of subsidies. Farmers in the north are subsidized. Our farmers are producing less and less because it does not make economic sense to produce food on a large scale. And they are making losses increasingly every year. Governments again have to come in and protect that sector so that more food can be produced.
Thank you. And of course, I think Professor Noah Midamba, you've been on this program saying that the next war is not going to be the war about geopolitics, but geopolitics still is resources, but it's going to be a war on resources, and one should be water as well.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Right, and of course we shall be looking at these issues also much later in the course of the program. But a tender reminder on what we're asking you this morning. You're watching Standing on Guard, where we discuss issues on security matters. And of course, yesterday we saw, or the day before yesterday, the president deploying the MRPs. If you don't know what MRPs are, these are armament vehicles for the police. And we're asking you, do you think the newly acquired MRPs will heighten security in the country? Do you think the newly acquired MRPs will heighten security in the country? Hit us on Twitter. AMLiveNTV is our Twitter handle. Also, AMLiveNTV is our profile name on Facebook. And there is a lot of reactions that we can see also on social media. That is, let me try and just pick one or two. Somebody is saying here, this is in regard to drought, that they are jokers. The drought caused it rained heavily last week. Right? This is what someone is saying regarding also the ongoing drought. Regarding Wario, he's saying Wario should be in jail, not in office. This is a story we ran a fuss about Wario, who is to be prosecuted according to the director of prosecutions. Then we have someone It says MPs to investigate drought in Isiolo is a waste of time. Apollos has summed it by quoting Wangari Maathai. Also, somebody saying, because if they don't elect good leadership, they will die from that hunger. They must vote. And Kenya police only know how to react. That cannot curb insecurity unless they start to act and not wait for an event. This is in light of a question that we just asked you about security. So keep them coming through. We shall be sampling some of them and, of course, squeezing them back also on our screen for you to read. Retired Anglican Archbishop Dr. Eliud Obukala will now take over as the chairman of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission once he has been sworn in by the president. Parliament unanimously approved the appointment of Obukala, but says the secretariat at the EACC needs to be vetted or dissolved, and that he needs political goodwill from the executive, I should say, and the legislatures to work effectively. The National Assembly also approved the appointment of all the 6 commissioners and the chairman of the IBC, Wafula Chebukati. The National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, in its 43-page report, found all the nominees suitable to serve. The nomination of Chebukati.
It's not the Anglican Church. Neither is it any religious activity. He is walking into a very dangerous institution called the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, where corruption fights back. We will never fight corruption in this country unless we dissolve that secretariat. The Speaker, we must dissolve. If we want Bishop Wabukala to succeed, we must dissolve the Secretariat of Anti-Corruption.
All right, so we have the looming hunger that should be declared a national disaster. Also, we had MPs saying that corruption in this country should be declared a national disaster. I want to also draw attention to the editorial cartoon today in the People Daily. This is according to Stano, and this is what he's drawn for you. This is in regard to what we've also shown you as the chair of EACC. Now we have Eliud Obukala, and we can see the journalist asking here, Bishop, how are you going to stop the thieves in a biblical way? So people were saying we've had all manner of chairmen or the chairperson of the EACC, but from every quarter now we have it from the clergy, and we can see the journalists here. And then Obukala is here with the Bible saying the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I come that they may have life and have it abundantly. So this is flying in the face of what really the Bible. I think he's misquoted the Bible there, the way Jesus really said this. Yeah. So is he coming that now the pose of goons and the corrupt cartels in this country, they'll have life and have it abundantly? Yeah. Let's talk about Eliud Obukala as the chair of EACC. Let's listen from, because we had it last, from Dr.
Yes.
Mumo Nzau.
There are two things here. I think first is the political culture in the country, and the other one is about legal and institutional issues. Fundamentally, you cannot fight corruption effectively in a country where corruption is fashionable. And there are a lot of people who just think my small corruption here is not as bad. Let's shout about mega corruption out there. But you know, I can always find my way through small things here and all that. So that culture has to change. But at the same time, we need to make corruption a criminal issue, so that people don't just talk about he's corrupt and it's all, you know, newspaper fiasco. It's about people being taken to court and people believing that they are, because sometimes it's mind-boggling. It's like people don't believe it because they don't end up in court anyway, most of them. And sometimes it becomes a sort of political witch hunt and all this. Sometimes a circus and so on.
All right.
So we need to be careful. We need to say what we want, and we do it what we mean, because it has been reduced into just, you know, it's like, fine, corruption is there, we have to fight it and so on, but nobody is ready to bite the bullet and do the right thing. And I think we need to institutionalize, to work with the institutions, of course, support them with the correct national culture outlook.
All right, but I want to talk about, yes.
And you know, prosecute if that is what, because people just say they're corrupt,
okay,
but nothing is happening in the courts.
My question is very pointed. Do you think Webukala will bring any discernible difference in fighting corruption?
As a person, he cannot. It is an institution. I don't know how to praise somebody an individual.
Do we have the political will?
I think he has the bishop has the will and you know the stamina to move the thing, but he needs the institutional support.
Okay, let's hear from Dr. Apollos, because we've seen the Bishop Webukala is not the first time that he's really talking or fighting against corruption. He's been the chair of the National Steering Committee, National Steering Campaign Committee against corruption in this country. Do you know of what National Steering National Steering Anti-Corruption Campaign Committee has been doing so far in fighting corruption?
You see, I think...
Are you even privy to this particular organization? No, you've never heard about it?
Archbishop Webukala will be a very frustrated man in the new position, because he will quote the Bible and say that a thief has 40 days, quoting the Bible. But here in Kenya...
No, but that is not from the Bible. Which verse in the Bible that
says
that
you only have to wait for 40 days, then the thief will be arrested. But in Kenya, the book of Proverbs. But in Kenya, a thief has 40 years. Remember the Goldenberg scandal?
Yes.
It is still there, waiting to be prosecuted. The problem with Kenyans is that our social reaction to white-collar crime is very ambiguous. We love them, yet we hate them. Because sometimes I admire Kamlesh Patel, I admire the agro-leasing people, I admire the chicken gate people, I admire all these people who steal and they are there. Like this young lady who was carrying the money in...
Kafura.
Yeah, Kafura. I admire her. I wish I would meet her and take tea with her, then
then you get a soft loan of
60
million.
Loan, 50 million. So Kenyans are very funny people. They admire these thieves. And the prosecution, investigation, and the sentencing of white-collar crime is very soft. The people who are prosecuting like those thieves. The judges like the thieves. The CID like the Halake Wako, with his fiasco. You can see what he does every day, but he still continues to survive. So Webukala has a very long way to go. He will agonize and he will be a person in problems.
He'll agonize, okay. And then the Secretariat, we've heard MP saying the Secretariat also should be dissolved because they don't have, the wherewithal. Not really the wherewithal. They seem not to be, or they are lapdog of the executive, according to some pundits.
Debarl, I think Mumo said that this is, what do you call it, economic crime?
Yeah, it's an economic crime.
It is a national security issue.
That's right, that's right.
And here's the reason why I'm saying that, and Kenyans better wake up to what I just said. Donald Trump is planning to tie all aid to Africa to the level of war on corruption.
Yes.
And he's signaled several places where he's going to cut aid. Now, for years we thought business as usual, life is okay, we're getting US aid, we're getting some aid from Europe and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
The time has come to cut those aid. And when you cut those aid, and we are ravaging climate change, which is impacting us, and we have construction and all other things that are necessary for us to move ahead with development.
Yes.
We will not move ahead with development. So getting a man in robe and Musalaba in front is just not good enough. The issue is this man going to be given opportunity? Is he committed himself to really make a difference? Because it is war. We have an example in this country of Muchuki. We now have an example of Matiang'i. Who is willing to die for the cause to make Kenya number one and make a change? That is where it is coming from. We can no longer pretend that life is okay when people looting left and right what is supposed to be public good, and these people are free and running around free.
Right.
I'm calling for an economic committee type of prison.
All right.
These people need to be locked.
Right. We'll look into this also because I think there was a sort of a leaked questionnaire about the Trump transition questionnaire, and these questions that also Professor Noah Midamba is asking are very poignant. And one of them that is tied to corruption is they're asking, that is quickly followed about the humanitarian assistance money. They're asking, with so much corruption in Africa, how much of our funding is stolen? That is the US asking. Why should we spend these funds on Africa when we are suffering here in the US?
Correct.